I was once called a freeloader right at my in-laws' dinner table. But the day I discovered 5 million euros had been misappropriated and an audio recording confirmed a plot to embezzle funds, I knew silence was complicity. I signed the divorce papers, sealed the evidence, fired my husband's relatives in front of his mother, and rebuilt the company with transparent discipline and a new energy project that opened new doors. I chose to stand tall against the storm of public opinion, to return the hard-earned money to my employees, and restore my own honor. If you were in my position, what would you do when faced with sarcasm, accusations of freeloading and slander? Please leave a comment, share your perspective, and send this to someone who needs strength. I invite you to listen to my story. The evening at my parents-in-law's house, under the low-hanging yellow lights over the long dining table, the clinking of cutlery against plates echoed like a metronome against my temples. I sat to Arthur's right, forcing a polite smile. Just as everyone raised their glasses, Eleanor looked at me, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, her voice dripping with thinly veiled sarcasm. "Clara, you are truly fortunate. This large company you have is all thanks to Arthur. Don't get ahead of yourself." A brief silence fell over the table before the whispers of Arthur's relatives began. Aunt Sophie smirked, taking a piece of fish. Of course. How could Clara possibly manage the company without Arthur? The words, seemingly light as air, landed like stones in my ears. I gripped my water glass, my fingertips cold, but my smile remained gentle. I was used to it, used to people attributing my success to the man beside me. I glanced at my husband. Arthur sat back comfortably in his crisp white shirt, the watch I bought him last week gleaming on his wrist. He smirked, basking in the pride his mother and relatives were showering upon him. "She only says that because she cares for you," he murmured, placing a piece of roast on my plate, his eyes barely meeting mine. I swallowed the difficult bite, my mind flashing back to an afternoon 3 years ago. Back then, Arthur's company was drowning in bank debt, contracts shedding like autumn leaves. I had brought my savings book, the 10 million euro figure stark against the paper. My hand trembled, but my voice was firm. "Save the company first, we'll talk later." From that day, we restructured everything. Arthur contributed his reputation and connections. I handled the finances and operations. But at this dinner table, one sentence was enough to erase it all. "That new car of Arthur's is stunning, isn't it, Eleanor?" Another aunt chimed in, glancing at me. "Clara really hit the jackpot marrying into this family." Eleanor's voice dripped poison into my ear again. "A good marriage is a blessing, dear. You focus on being a good wife. Leave the company matters to the men." I smiled and set down my chopsticks. "Yes, I understand." I said it just to get through the meal. Not because I didn't have a retort, but because I needed to remain calm, to distinguish between ingrained patriarchy and calculated scheming. The dinner ended with idle chatter. I excused myself to take a call and left early. In the underground garage, a message from my assistant, Isabel, lit up my screen. "Clara, I've just emailed you this quarter's bonus report. There's something unusual." Back at our apartment, I opened my laptop. Isabel's email was at the top. "Urgent. Q3 summary report." The numbers danced before my eyes. The bonuses for frontline employees in logistics and customer service had been inexplicably slashed. The signatory on the approval was the department head, Victor, my husband's cousin, whom Eleanor had recommended for the job 6 months ago. I scrolled down to the expense reports. The entertainment expenses were inflated, with recurring charges from the same familiar restaurants and vague invoices. I opened another file. New hires. I recognized at least 4 of his family's surnames, all appointed to senior specialist roles with salaries above market rate, but with undefined KPIs. At the final note, my heart sank. Proposal for special holiday bonuses for the implementation team. Signed, Eleanor, Senior Advisor. I leaned back, closing my eyes to steady my breathing. It wasn't entirely unexpected. Ever since Eleanor had taken an interest in the company, the suggestions had become more frequent. Find a spot for Sophie in accounting. Victor is sharp. Put him in charge of the warehouse. I had thought giving family a chance was acceptable, as long as there were rules. But my authority was being eroded, bit by bit. I called Isabel. Cross-check this with the bank transfer records. Prioritize the quarterly bonuses, and don't say anything to Arthur for now. Isabel hesitated. I understand, but there's something else. I overheard the accounting department talking about a new batch of invoices, likely to justify the expenses for the warehouse team. I couldn't get a picture without being seen. I gripped the armrest of my chair. Schedule a risk management meeting for 8 a.m. tomorrow. All department heads must attend. Prepare a list of questions and send the invitations tonight. The subject line should be Urgent Internal Audit. After the call, I sketched out a plan. Reevaluate the bonus approval process, temporarily freeze approval rights in departments with his relatives, review all contracts with suppliers they introduced, and formally verify Eleanor's senior advisor role, a position that never existed in our organizational chart. My handwriting was messy but firm. The phone buzzed. A new message from Isabel, short but searing. Clara, I found more fake invoices. They trace back to Arthur's cousin. I put the phone down, the calm rhythm of my heart shifting to one of decisive action. The night was quiet, but in my mind, the steps were already in motion. I would go to the office early, with security as witnesses, to seal the evidence room. The next morning, as I stepped out of the underground garage, my phone rang. Eleanor. I took a deep breath before answering. Her voice was sharp as a knife. Clara, don't think you're so clever. This company belongs to this family. You are just a wife. She hung up before I could reply. A chill ran down my spine, but my hand tightened on my briefcase. Walking past the reception, I could already hear Eleanor's voice booming from the open plan office. From now on, all reports come through me. Clara isn't capable of managing this. A few employees exchanged uneasy glances. I saw her through the glass partition, standing in the middle of the room, hands on her hips, flanked by the new relatives I had seen on the payroll list. I pushed the door open. Good morning, Eleanor. I kept my voice calm. Who are you meeting with? She turned, a smirk on her face. With my people. You go sign your papers and stay out of important matters. She glanced at the financial data on the wall-mounted screen. These numbers are a disaster. Let Arthur handle it. He knows what he's doing. I stepped forward, placing a file on the table. Eleanor, I am the legal representative of this company and responsible for it by law. I ask you to respect the company's procedures. All discussions should take place in a meeting room, with minutes taken. Her lip curled. You're nothing but a freeloader. Without Arthur, what are you? The cold, dry words hung in the air. I heard the blood pounding in my ears, but my voice remained steady. Eleanor, I have made many concessions for the sake of the family. But in this company, every position, including my own, must adhere to the rules. I demand that you stop giving orders to the staff. I looked at the receptionist. Please call security to the 3rd floor. Then to the managers. Pending the emergency meeting, I am freezing all bonus and entertainment expense approvals in departments that have had personnel changes in the last 6 months. Isabel rushed over, her laptop in her arms. I'm here, Clara. I've set up meeting room A and invited the department heads. I have the bonus reconciliation reports and the new supplier list ready, including the approval logs. The elevator doors opened, and Arthur stepped out, his shirt perfectly ironed. He glanced at the tense scene, then walked over to his mother. Mother, I told you, not so loud at the office. He turned to me, his tone placating but distant. Darling, don't be so tense. Mother only wants what's best for the company. Let us handle the finances. Don't overwhelm yourself. I looked him straight in the eye and realized he was not on my side. I nodded slowly, but my words took a different path. If you want what's best, then join me in the internal audit meeting, right now. We will base everything on the data. I handed him the file, already tabbed. These are the irregularities. Have a look. He frowned but didn't open it. Clara, don't take this too far. Don't embarrass my mother in front of the employees. His words were colder than the air conditioning. Eleanor immediately seized the opportunity. You hear that? At home and in this company, what I say is final. I motioned for security to stand by the evidence room. Effective immediately, this room is sealed for inspection. Only authorized personnel and the audit team may enter, with a sign-in log. I then addressed the staff. Anyone involved in the quarterly bonus approvals, prepare a written explanation. The atmosphere thickened. In the silence that followed, Isabel tapped my arm and whispered, Clara, I have something. She showed me her phone and audio file, nearly 10 minutes long. I recorded this yesterday outside the warehouse. It's Eleanor talking to Victor about embezzling money. My heart leaped, but my face remained impassive. I looked from my mother-in-law to my husband. Before we continue, I would like to play a brief internal conversation related to our approval process. I placed the phone on the table. The recording began with the sound of heels on the tile floor, followed by a familiar woman's voice, clear as day. Get it done cleanly for me. If we don't look out for our own family, who will? Skim what you can. Just don't let Clara find out. The meeting room fell into a stunned silence. Eleanor froze, and the color drained from Arthur's face. I paused the recording, my finger hovering over the screen. There's more. The morning meeting concluded with a vote to suspend approval rights and seal the evidence room. After saving the audio file and arranging for an independent audit, I left the room. As the glass door closed behind me, I overheard someone whisper near the elevators. She only got this far because of Arthur. She can't manage the company alone. I paused for half a beat, took a breath, and kept walking. Rumors don't need evidence. That afternoon, I met Isabel at a cafe near the office. From the table behind me, I heard the familiar voice of the new receptionist. I saw everything this morning. Clara's mother-in-law is fierce. The company must be in the family's name for her to act like that. Another voice added, I heard Clara only built this company with her husband's help. The ice in my glass clinked. Even when the truth was laid out in a file, prejudice stood there, smirking. Just then, Maria, a veteran employee who had recently resigned to care for her sick mother, walked in. Seeing me, she hesitated, then approached. Clara, she began, her voice low. What we did in the warehouse. I know it was wrong, but they said the orders came from the top. I was afraid to speak up. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I looked at her worn hands. It's not your fault, Maria. This is my responsibility as the head of the company. I believe in you, Clara, she said, but you have to be careful. People are saying you're a freeloader. I managed a small, humorless smile. Isabel arrived, looking exhausted. She opened her laptop and showed me a consolidated file. I've gathered it all. A total of 5 million euros in fake invoices over 4 months, disguised as client entertainment, urgent shipping, and project bonuses. Victor's signature is on all of them, with advisor handwritten on some. She looked up, her voice firm. It's enough for the auditors and a lawyer. I nodded, feeling my spine straighten. 5 million euros wasn't just a number. It was a mirror reflecting exactly who had their hands in the till. I made a quick call to an independent auditing firm to schedule a meeting, then texted Arthur, We need to talk tonight. His reply was 3 cold words. Don't be tense. If rumors were a knife, my husband's indifference was the handle. When Arthur came home, he tossed his keys on the counter and sank onto the sofa. Do you know what your mother and relatives have been doing at the company? I asked, handing him a drink. He scowled. Here we go again. Don't be so petty, Clara. My mother was only trying to help. Helping by cutting employee bonuses and fabricating invoices? I asked, my voice even. He laughed, a bitter sound. Every company has its gray areas. Why are you scrutinizing every little thing? You're turning our home into a battlefield. Whether it's a battlefield depends on which side you choose to stand on, I replied. I need you to review this file and co-sign the suspension orders for the individuals involved, pending the audit. He set his glass down. I will not sign anything that makes my mother lose face. Do you understand? The room felt suffocating. For years, I had refused to see it. He always chose appearances. I pulled the file from my bag. Then tomorrow, in front of the board, I will sign it alone. Are you threatening me? I'm protecting the company, I said quietly. He stood and walked towards the bedroom, shaking his head. His phone vibrated on a shelf. A notification lit up the lock screen. A message from someone named Laura. The preview was visible. Are you coming? I booked the usual room. Don't bring the chairwoman. My heart plummeted. I tapped the screen. A long history of messages appeared: hotel check-ins, secret rendezvous. The room seemed to tilt. My own voice sounded distant. So, this is the truth. Laura's name appeared again with typing dots. I'll stop by the office tomorrow. Your mother said she has a job for me. I looked up. A door inside me had closed. I knew that tomorrow, I wouldn't just be confronting financial fraud. I would be confronting a hollow marriage. The next morning, standing in the courthouse hallway with the freshly signed divorce decree, I felt surprisingly light. Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. You're not worthy of this family, but today, I was no longer anyone's daughter-in-law. It was the first moment of peace I'd had in months. Arthur exited the courtroom, his expression cool as ever. He signed the final papers without looking at me. You'll regret this, he said, a slight sneer on his lips. Without me, you're nothing. I met his gaze calmly. Arthur, I saved this company and rebuilt it from the ground up. Without me, you wouldn't have a platform to stand on to say that. He faltered for a second, then shrugged and walked away, his footsteps disappearing into the crowd. I met Isabel in the parking garage. She handed me a thick envelope. I got the access logs. Arthur's cousin, Victor, transferred 500,000 euros from the company account to an intermediary account labeled as a client advance. The authorization was a scanned copy with the advisor title, but no official appointment. This is enough grounds for immediate termination, I said, flipping through the pages. Prepare the legal paperwork and cross-reference the company bylaws. Also, compile a list of all his relatives on the payroll. Revoke their system access before we notify them to prevent them from covering their tracks. Back at the office, I called HR and legal. Draft termination notices for these 5 individuals immediately. Revoke their access cards and system accounts. The reason is suspicion of embezzlement and financial misconduct, based on the internal audit report. Follow protocol, with security and a union representative present as witnesses. But this involves your husband's family. The head of HR began. My ex-husband, I corrected. The company is not a place to shelter nepotism. We will act according to the law and our internal regulations. I will sign off on it and take full responsibility. I sent a company-wide email announcing the audit and the subsequent actions, my language concise and professional. Then, I scheduled a meeting with all department heads to ensure transparency, restore the stolen bonuses, and review all suppliers introduced by the terminated employees. Just then, my phone lit up. A text from the receptionist. Clara, Eleanor is in the main conference room with some strangers. She's calling a board meeting and demanding to be made chairwoman. I clenched the signed termination orders. A cold determination washed over me. Isabel, bring the entire file. Let's go to the conference room. Inside, Eleanor's shrill voice cut through the air. She is not fit to run this company. I strode to the head of the table and placed my briefcase down. Good morning, everyone. This meeting, as scheduled, is to announce the results of the internal audit and the corresponding disciplinary actions. Isabel set up the projector. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. How dare you fire my family? You're nothing but a freeloader. I gestured for security to maintain order. Today, we will speak with documents only. The screen lit up with a summary. 5 million euros in falsified invoices. Then I played the recording. Get it done cleanly for me. Skim what you can. Just don't let Clara find out. The room was silent. This is an excerpt, I said. The full recording is with the legal department. A department head spoke up. I support handling this according to protocol. The frontline employees who had their bonuses cut deserve to be repaid. A murmur of agreement spread through the room. They will be fully reimbursed within 3 working days, I announced. Eleanor lunged for the remote, but security gently intervened. I am Arthur's mother. I have rights, she shrieked. Rights in this company are based on legal standing, not family ties, I stated calmly. The advisor position was never officially created. I read out the termination notices, signed them with a firm stroke of my pen, and had Isabel present the recovery plan. This company belongs to my family, Eleanor hissed. I looked her in the eye. This company belongs to the legal entity registered in my name, and it runs on the sweat and discipline of its employees, not as a family power play. As of today, your family's interference is over. A young employee spoke up, his voice trembling but clear. Thank you, Clara. We've been hoping for this for a long time. A smattering of applause grew steady. Eleanor's face turned crimson. I will make you pay for this. This company is no longer a place for your family, I said, then turned to security. Please escort Mrs. Eleanor to the visitors area. If she wishes to have a meeting, she can schedule one through the proper channels. As she was led away, the tense atmosphere finally broke. The next day, a crowd had gathered at the main gate. Cameras were flashing. Eleanor's brother was yelling, Clara, you dare to fire my entire family. Face us. Eleanor stood beside him, pointing at the company sign. This belongs to us. I walked to the gate, security on either side. I am Clara, the legal representative of this company, I announced. If you want to challenge me, do so with evidence. I held up the file. Here is the summary of the €5 million fraud, along with the recording confirming the conspiracy. You're lying, the uncle shouted. I held up the bank statements. A €500,000 transfer to an intermediary account with no corresponding contract, duplicate invoices, an unauthorized advisor signature. If you call this helping, I will gladly invite the police to hear your explanation. The crowd quieted. Eleanor pushed forward. You ungrateful wretch, without Arthur. My marriage is over. I cut in. This is about the company, not a family drama. A few people in the crowd murmured their support for transparency. Just then, Isabel discreetly touched my elbow. Mr. Dubois from Titan Energy wants to meet you. He's been following the news about your push for transparency and is interested in a partnership. The police arrived and calmly dispersed the crowd. As they left, Eleanor pointed a trembling finger at me. You just wait. Arthur will make you pay. Her threat hung in the air, but I felt only a quiet resolve. Back inside, Isabel said. I saw someone familiar in the crowd. I turned. On the edge of the dissipating group, a man detached himself from the shadows. His face was gaunt, his posture defeated. It was Arthur. He stood by a lamppost, his eyes filled not with the arrogance of our dinner parties, but with a dull, gray resentment. Later, he found me at the cafe across the street. Clara, he began, his voice hoarse, you've ruined my family. Are you happy now? Arthur, I said calmly. 3 years ago, who saved your company? You called me your savior then. Today, you call me a freeloader. Which is it? I was wrong, he mumbled, his head bowed. My mother has a temper. I was afraid of losing face. Please drop the lawsuit. Give me a chance to survive. I shook my head. The law is the only way for things to be set right. The employee's money must be returned. Those responsible must be held accountable. I will not withdraw the complaint out of some misplaced sentiment. Please, Clara. I admit I was wrong. I'll stand with you, he pleaded, grabbing my arm. You don't need to stand with me, Arthur. You needed to stand with the truth, and it's too late for that. I stood to leave. Your family must answer for what they did. I am no longer a part of it. I left money for my drink and walked out. Isabel was waiting with a blue folder, the framework agreement from Mr. Dubois. He's approved all our requested changes regarding financial transparency and control mechanisms. She pointed to a clause. Commitment to no off-the-books advisors and no verbal authorizations. We'll sign tomorrow, I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my lips. And send out a notice for new hiring. Prioritize the frontline staff who were cheated out of their bonuses. Let everyone know this company exists to protect those who do their work with integrity. I looked up at the sky. Behind me, the noise of the past was finally fading. Ahead, the road was clear, and I was walking it on my own. The next morning, Mr. Dubois and I signed the joint venture agreement. "Clara," he said with a firm handshake, "I admire your persistence. What I need most is discipline and transparency. Here, I see both." Just as we began discussing the project launch, Isabel took a call. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were tense. "Clara, the court has issued its preliminary ruling. The individuals from your ex-husband's family must repay the 5 million euros to the company. If they fail to comply, their assets will be seized." The court also validated all our evidence. A wave of relief washed over me. "Thank you. Legal department, please prepare the enforcement documents immediately." The phone rang again. "Eleanor," I answered. Her voice was weak. "Clara, can you withdraw the complaint? We are ruined." "I told you before," I said evenly. "This is a matter for the court. I cannot trample on the rights of my employees for the sake of peace." I ended the call. The law is the only straight path I choose to walk. That evening, I stood on the 12th floor balcony, looking out at the city lights. The news that Eleanor and Arthur were now homeless no longer shocked me. It was the full stop at the end of a long, exhausting sentence. I took a deep breath, feeling a freedom I hadn't realized I was missing. Freedom from fear, from the whispers of freeloader. A young engineer passed by. "Clara," he said with a grin, "we have a nickname for you. Clara the Resilient." I laughed. Not long ago, people called me Clara the Freeloader. The respect in their eyes was a quiet affirmation, more powerful than any loud declaration. Isabel joined me on the balcony. "The bonus fund has been fully disbursed. 0 outstanding complaints." She paused. "About his family. Arthur is in a rented room. Eleanor is collecting recyclables, sleeping on a bench in the old market square. The rest of the relatives have scattered." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the horizon. There are some debts that can only be paid with money, and others that require days of self-reflection. I don't feel triumph, but I don't feel pity either. They arrived here by their own choices. The phone on my desk blinked. The internal communications team, reading the draft of the next newsletter, the energy project hitting its first milestone, new engineer training, honoring the warehouse team for a perfect transition. I approved it, adding a line. "We win through discipline, not luck." An email popped up, an invitation to be a keynote speaker at the city's business conference on transparent governance. The topics were internal controls, business ethics, risk management. Words that were once wounds had become my armor. "Accept it, Clara," Isabel said from behind me. "You have a real story to tell." "Of course," I replied, and began typing my response. "What I can share is this. Believe in discipline and in kindness. Kindness is not weak, it simply needs a steel frame to stand tall." I looked out at the city, at the thousands of lighted windows. I had walked through the storm and learned to stand on my own 2 feet. Justice, I realized, doesn't arrive with a shout, but with the steady, quiet rhythm of due process. On a blank page in my notebook, I wrote the first line of my speech. "We don't ask for justice, we build it." The city lights reflected in the glass, and in them, I saw my own reflection standing straight, ready for whatever came next.